Hi, my name's Laura. I'm usually out hiking and doing videos, um, but in sunny Arizona, it just happened to be raining today. And I decided to share my story with you. Um, it started in 2020. There was a Saturn Jupiter conjunction at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And lo and behold, my Saturn is at 0 degrees of Aquarius, and I have Jupiter at 12 degrees of Aquarius. It was my nodal return, my Saturn return, um, and Uranus in my birth chart is directly opposite of Saturn. Um, so there was a bunch of other stuff going on. I can't, I should have looked it up before I started, but anyway, I just thought I'd tell you my life fell apart. Saturn Jupiter conjunctions are supposed to be about new beginnings. And I had met my boyfriend a year prior, and I was delivering flowers at a friend's house. And she introduced me to someone sitting at her kitchen table. I looked over and I said, "Hey," and I got an electric shock. And there were a few people around, and I looked around and I was looking to see if anyone else had felt the shock, and nobody had. And I just ran out the door. I didn't know what to think. I mean, I got an electric shock. I barely remember what the person looked like that she introduced me to. Um, but I'll never forget that shock. 2 weeks later, I was unloading groceries from my car, and I saw a person I'd never seen across the road before, and he asked me if the beer that I was buying was for 4th of July, and I said, "Yeah, that's it, 4th of July." I forgot that it was 4th of July, but there was a good sale on it at the store, so that's why I was buying it. Um, it turns out that was the same person. The one across the street from me now was staying with his cousin, and that was the same person that I had met at my friend's house in the same mobile home park. Um, 2 weeks prior, but I didn't know that at the time. Um, anyway, I had moved to Arizona, and I was working with my sister at a flower shop she had just opened, and we were doing pretty good. We were doing really good, actually. We had 3 accounts, and we couldn't take in any more work. We couldn't even open the doors. We were busy, very busy. Um, they were resort hotels, which is kind of my specialty. I love having carte blanche, just anything I want to make and everything. And I'd been doing it a long time, and it was my joy in life. And I am so grateful to have had that job. It's not the only job that I've had, but it's what kept me sane in my life. Creative outlet. Creativity is the most healing thing that I can think of doing. Nothing else matters when I'm like in the zone, and I never had any creativity blocks when I was working. I mean, it was always a new challenge every day, and I was so up for it. It was like if I couldn't work, that's when I started getting depressed. Um, there was something about needing to be going to work. And when I wasn't working at floral design, like for a while, I worked as a hearing aid technician at a hearing and optical place. I didn't like it much. I really missed design work. I tried to go back to it from that job, but I was with a really abusive person who did not want me to switch back to my old job at all. And he was willing to make a big scene for me even to try going back to my old profession, as opposed to working with him at his hearing aid and optical place. Mm. But anyway, after I met this person, I was thinking I'm due for a relationship. It was my my boyfriend. Well, I was with him for 17 years. He was very abusive, and he had died 3 or 4 years previously, and I was thinking I was due for a relationship. I was kind of hoping that I could meet someone while I was there in Arizona. Um, I was working on the place that I moved into, painting the inside. It was just a trailer, but I liked it, and I put 70s furniture in it, and I made some curtains for it that were 70s, and I was really having fun with it. And my sister turned out to be like an excellent buyer. The vases she had were gorgeous. The place she got was huge. It was enormous. All the wood and feathers and just all the stuff that we had to use in arrangements was just top notch. It was awesome. My sister studied me for many, many years. Unbeknownst to me, she was pulling a destiny swap on me, taking credit for my work, telling everyone it was hers, um, not paying me for my work, having me put in on the business she was going to split profits with me, and all kinds of things like this that never happened. She was highly abusive. She would always ask my opinion, but never take it. Um, she she actually tried to put blocks on me creatively, telling me, "Oh, you can't do that." And I said, "I've been a floral designer for 40 years and no one's ever told me I can't do something." But here you've never had this job before. You just got some money and decided to open up a shop and have me come here to show you how to do it, but you refuse to take any of my advice, and now you're trying to tell me what I can and can't do when I make an arrangement. And she was so rude, so mean, screaming at me. I would stay all night to get everything done. She'd come in the next morning and start picking everything apart and screaming at me. And I was there one night. She came in, started screaming the next day, started picking my arrangements apart, and I looked at her and I saw something profoundly evil. And then I saw it on her husband's face. It was terrifying. It's what happens when a narcissist mask slips. and you see them for who and what they really are. I was 58 years old. My sister was going through her Saturn was in Capricorn, mine was in Aquarius. She started her Saturn return before I did, and that's when she was opening the business. When I found out what she was up to, it blew me away. I couldn't believe that she was taking credit for my work, telling me that she wasn't making any money. But when I started doing the math and looking at it, she was hauling in so much money. Then I found out she had her son, daughter-in-law, and husband on the payroll, but she wasn't paying me, and I was doing all of the work. She knew how much I loved my job. She saw a niche where there really needed to be a flower shop, and she took full advantage of me. And the worst part about it is, my father had died the year before, and that was her inheritance from my father. Turns out both my brothers also got the same inheritance, and all the grandchildren got money, but my mother never gave me mine. All she gave me was my dad's old minivan, so I could drive out to Arizona to work for my sister. She told me that there was no money to give me, that everything went to her, but I found out that was a lie, and I couldn't believe it. Then I found out through some cousins that my mother kept my inheritance from my grandmother in the year 2000. My mother was the executor in both wills, and everybody got money but me. And, finding out my sister was an evil narcissist, and so was her husband, it really shook me, especially seeing it for myself and seeing just how heinous what she was doing to me was. And then looking up back over the 60 years, how she used me in all the smear campaigns, all the cruel things she did to me, how she used reactive abuse against me to get me dysregulated while she was regulated, and then calling the police on me and telling them that I was beating her and, or beating my brother, and they both ganged up on me and had me arrested and, just so many things like that. Sleeping with boyfriends of mine and, just evil things. Um, it, it, it was shocking. But finding out that my mother was also a narcissist. And then my two brothers and my father. It's like when I found out about my sister and her husband, I started going to the desert and camping a lot and staying out there because I didn't want to be in town anywhere near them. And turns out during this time, I got ghosted by that boyfriend that I got an electric shock from. I was truly in love with him, and I got shocked like crazy the day that I met him. And I started dating him. It turns out he was a narcissist too and had trauma bonded me. And I was in the desert hiking and thinking and looking through YouTube for any answers whatsoever as to why I was ghosted and why my life was falling apart. And I was listening to a tarot card reading, and they called me out. They were talking directly to me. I was in shock. I'm like, what? You know, it sounded just like they were talking directly to me, and they were talking about um, being ghosted and having a narcissistic sister. And I couldn't believe it. And then they said, do you have two framed Monet prints behind your dresser? And I didn't, I knew I had two framed prints, but I didn't know where they were. And I went and looked, and they were behind my dresser. And I went, wow, that is too eerie. That is just bizarre, you know. And then more readings. One, my pipes had never made a noise before, and they made a noise, and I was thinking, wow, what was that? And then they go, oh, did you just have your water pipes make a noise in your house? And I'm like, wow, that's really weird. And this kept going on, and they were talking to me, trying to explain to me what was going on in my life. And I'm, you know, before my boyfriend left, he lit my house on fire and betrayed me in numerous ways, um, taking money from me and things. And I think he was with my sister. I'm pretty dang sure of it. Um, at least I know she was trying to get into the relationship and you know, doing drugs with him or something like that, and marijuana or whatever. I don't know. But that's, I hear how she keeps her flying monkeys in line, but you know, I went to the desert and I started hiking. I couldn't understand why I was ghosted. I couldn't understand how my sister could be so cruel. And then my mother, and then my brothers. Um, then I found out my daughter. Then I learned about parental alienation, and my son was parental alienated against me. My daughter was a narcissist. It hurt me to my core because once you find out someone's a narcissist, that they have not got your best interests at heart, they actually would rather harm you and revel in your pain than ever give you the time of day. They're incapable of love, and they have no empathy for anyone. They're usually constant victims. There are different types of narcissists, but they all use the same tactics: gaslighting, triangulation, all forms of manipulation. The gaslighting is especially heinous because it makes you doubt your own reality. And I couldn't make a decision. I couldn't, I mean, this started when I was 58, and I finally came to radical acceptance when I was almost 64. It took me a very long time to wrap my head around how every person in my life could have been working at cross purposes against me, and I thought they loved me. How they could be stealing my money and stabbing me in the back and pretending that they love me. Um, it's the dark night of the soul where absolutely everything you think is real is a lie, and everything you think is a lie is real. I mentioned a dark night of the soul to my mother, and she said the only person she ever knew that went through it was Mother Teresa. And And she said, but she died, lonely and alone. And and I was thinking about that night. And then when I realized just how narcissists are, how they take pleasure in your pain, and I was thinking about a nurse being, someone who nursed thousands of people who were sick and dying. Yeah, that sounds like it would be right up the alley for a narcissist. And my guides confirmed she was. She was a narcissist. Mother Teresa was a narcissist. She took pleasure in other people's pain. And everyone was commending her for trying to help others. But she was always telling them, no, don't go to the hospital. I can take care of you and that kind of stuff. But when she got sick, she went straight to the hospital. She did not wait for anyone to come and wipe the sweat from her brow and try to help her through her illness. Oh no, because she didn't want to get put in a position that she put others in. I thought, it was fitting the way that she died. I don't know I don't know if narcissists can be cured. I heard Dr. Romney one time say that a narcissist would have to change their entire personality in order to be able to heal. And then I was listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza say that he has a meditation program that when you follow it can change your whole personality, and it can rewire you for success and make you magnetic. And I was thinking that's probably the only cure that a narcissist, could ever have. I think it would work on them, and my guides confirmed it. However, the only problem is narcissists refuse to admit that there's anything wrong with them. They don't have a problem. Their victims have the problem because their victims are the ones who are suffering, are the ones who can't make a decision, are the ones whose short-term memory loss is so bad that they can hardly function. This is what the gaslighting and other tactics that the narcissists use do to you. They also, I was suffering from CPTSD severely my whole life. Anxiety and depression. I mean, they had me, my whole family, had me convinced that I was bipolar, that I was crazy because of the reactive abuse. They push my buttons, I get dysregulated and get angry while they calm down and get regulated. This has been used against me my entire life. And I was, when my guides showed me what was going on, they made me drive to Ohio 2 times so that I would really know what they were trying to show me. And when they started showing me, the gaslighting and walking into a room and knowing that the vibrations were completely off in the room, and then I found out they were all going to my parents' 65th wedding anniversary in Las Vegas. And they were even taking the kid that used to live up the street from us because he used to hang at our house because he didn't have any brothers and sisters. And he was my brother's friend. But they even invited him. And they told me I needed to stay home and feed my brother's cats. No lie. No lie. Their 65th wedding anniversary, my whole family and their spouses and siblings, and children and, the whole entire family going to Vegas for a week. And they told me to stay home put their new name in the newspaper and their wedding picture for their anniversary, and they'd be back in a week. And I did it. That's scapegoating. And the family mobbing. Oh my. If you've not heard of any of these things, if any of these things have happened to you, you might want to look into narcissistic abuse, family scapegoating, family mobbing, because all families pretty much do this too. But the more dysfunctional, the worse it gets. And my family has been dysfunctional since day one. I just never realized how bad it was. It was heinous. I actually accused my mother one time of her and her two sisters. They sit around and make fun of my cousins that obviously were abused by their little brother, who is a pedophile. And they would sit around and make fun of my cousins who were abused by their father. And I was thinking, if I can see that that man is a pedophile, and all you do is sit around and tease those poor kids, I said, I think that's sickening that you would not try to help those poor kids instead of just ridiculing them. And my mom looked at me with a look that could kill. This was 15 years prior to any of the things I've just described, and it infuriated her. And that's when she stopped giving me birthday presents, decided she was not going to let me have my inheritance from my grandmother or my father, when she stopped being nice to me and started stabbing me in the back and smiling in my face. But then I looked back, and from the time I was 4 years old, I remember being sick. And she always told me there was nothing wrong with me. And once I had 104.5 temperature. And I told her, didn't you hear me, my teeth chattering, and I was really cold last night? And she said, oh, I thought you were faking it. And I said, no, Mom, I wasn't. I said, I need to take your car to the hospital because I'm really sick right now. She said, oh, take it if you have to. And, I had 104.5 temperature when I got there. And she was telling me I was faking it. And this is nothing new for my mother, the way she treated me. Once I was raped, and her and my father came to get me in Texas and drive me to Florida, where they were. I think they were very, very afraid. And my sister, when I was there in Arizona where she was, I tore my muscles away from my breastbone by doing repetitious work, just putting oil on wood, and it just the repetition of it all tore my muscles from my breastbone. And I was at the hospital. My sister told the doctors behind my back that I was a drug addict and not to give me any pain medication or any type of medication whatsoever because I was a drug addict. Because she didn't want me to get put out of pain at all. She was always like that to me. When I found out about all these things, I was shown these things by my guides. And this isn't even the half of it. The reason that my mother and father always tried to convince me that I was crazy, and my brothers and sister, because they never wanted anyone to believe me if I ever found out what was going on. But after the rape, when they were taking me to Florida, they didn't get the medications filled because my sister told them not to. And they had to stop at least 100 times for me to have anxiety attacks. I couldn't catch my breath. I wanted to jump out the window in the car. They had to stop and pull over like every hour at least. I would lose it. And first thing my mom did when we got there was take me to a mental ward so I could get put on medications. The gaslighting. When I looked back, I couldn't remember my mother ever saying one word to me that wasn't gaslighting me, making me doubt my own reality, telling me that my brother would never hurt me like that when he always hurt me like that, and she knew it. She wasn't even in the room when my leg got broken, and she said he would never do that, but I was there. He did it. Okay? I didn't make it up. I was 48 years old. I did not make it up. They didn't want me to remember that my father had abused me as a small child. And that's why they were keeping me dumbed down with drugs and always abusing me and never inviting me on any of their vacations after that. You know, at 15 years prior to all the other stuff. Turns out my whole life I was treated like that by my family and never knew it. Never knew about the life insurance policies that I was supposed to get money from, or the wills that I was in. People can be quite heinous. It took me a real long time to realize this. And you know, there always were red flags. And I always did tell the truth. And they never did like it when I did that. I called my mom out one time for being mean to my cousins because their father had died and it was across the country. And they couldn't get back there for his funeral, so they were going to miss his funeral. And I said to my mom, Mom, you've got plenty of money. Why don't you help those kids get to their dad's funeral so they don't have to miss their own father's funeral? And she looked at me like she hadn't even thought about it. Oh, well, yeah, okay, of course I will. You know, like she didn't realize it. You know, she should have offered or whatever. Narcissists don't always know exactly what to do in certain situations. But she didn't like it that I told her that. And she, of course, did it and pretended like it was her idea and everything. But she made me pay for it later, passive aggressively, in any which way she could. And she knew my sister was going to try to destiny swap me by using her inheritance, the money she got from my father, to open this flower shop and get me to work for her. And they set me up over in this like slum ghetto. And I thought I was going to be able to afford my own place and stuff, but of course my sister wasn't paying me, so I did have to have the absolute most cheapest place in town, where I met the guy who ghosted me and trauma bonded me. 3 years later, after hiking in the desert and trying to wrap my head around this stuff, I was on the edge of town camping with my dog. I couldn't leave town. I was trauma bonded so badly. My place was falling down around me. My house was lit on fire, and my refrigerator stopped working, and the landlord wouldn't replace it, and the sewer had backed up twice and engulfed my car in raw sewage. And the police were being called on me every single day. And I just kept going home, taking a shower, and then leaving. See, my boyfriend and I, came across these people at the state park that was near us, this beach. And I recognized them from what I always called them were picklers, down low gay guys who went to public restrooms and had sex with each other. I recognized that was going on at this state park. And I've seen it a lot of state parks before. I've seen a lot of roadside rests. I've seen it. Being a floral designer, I just thought, I thought other people saw it too, but I guess they didn't because these guys were real good and they were organized. I've never seen picklers organized. They rarely even took each other's phone numbers because they didn't want to get found out. Mm. Um, we were at the state park. They were spying on us, unbeknownst to us. I mean, we knew it, but we didn't know it. I don't know if you understand that, but anyway, um, you know what? I think I'm going to make another video on this part of it. I mean, there's a lot of in-depth situations I'd like to go into to kind of explain to you how I could be caught out for 63 years of my life believing that my family loved me and that, turns out everyone in my life was a narcissist. Or at least avoidant. Pretty well, sure, they were all narcissists and psychopaths. Yeah. But I would love to tell you some more stories. Um, I also I want to go over every tactic they ever used on me, so that you can learn how to spot it. If you're going through trials and tribulations in your life right now, what really gave me answers was the astrology. I mean, the astrology, when I found out I was having my Saturn return and a nodal return, and the Saturn Jupiter conjunction was at the exact same degree as my Saturn was, and that I had Pluto going over my Mars. Yeah, after having just gone over my, it was going over my Sun. After going over my Mars and Venus, it was going over my Sun. So, um, you know, a lot of things going on in my life that, and Uranus, he was the lightning shock. He was what struck me that day that I met my ex. I call him my LTB, my last trauma bond. Almost 6 years ago now. Well, anyway, when I was camping on the outskirts of town that time, I saw a hitchhiker after 2 days. There was a hitchhiker out there, and I gave him $100 to drive me out of town, 100 miles, at least 100 miles out of town, whichever direction he was going. It didn't matter to me which way I was going. I just knew that I wasn't going anywhere near my family or my ex or anyone I ever even knew in that town. It was all a setup from the very beginning. A big setup. Believe it or not, it really was. So, there's an awakening going on. It all kicked off in 2020. We've all been on different timelines. But if weird, strange things started happening to you and you weren't sure what was going on, but your life just seemed to systematically fall apart, then you might be going through the same thing. And if you are, I'd like to be able to help you. At least see, you know, how you can get your questions answered. I'll be back for another video. Just know that I love you, and I am here to help you in any way I can. I've been going through this a long time. I've had a lot of channels, but I've also been through a lot of phones and a lot of trials and a lot of heartache. But I think I might be able to help a lot of people out there by telling my story, and that's why I'm doing it. Just know I love you, and if I can get through this, you can get through what you're going through. If you're homeless, I got a story about that too. I was homeless for 3 years going through this, and I can help you out. So tune in again and give me a thumbs up. That would be great. I could really use your help on that note. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot. I love you. Bye.